What you want for something in the first 10 rows?
$20 a piece.
Those tickets are only $12.50.
Who's your favorite heavy metal band?
Freeze! Yeah, baby!
Scorpions, but they're not here tonight, so I'll go for Freeze.
I saw them in '85 at Madison Square and they kicked ass.
Somebody ordered the London Symphony Orchestra, possibly while high. Cypress Hill, I'm looking in your direction.
This thing rules. The thing rules.
Oh hey, what's up? I'm Brian Altano.
And I'm Max Scoville.
This is a show where we discuss something we love.
Unpack why we love it.
Explain where it came from.
Try to remember our first impressions of it.
Share our weird stories about it.
Maybe learn something new about it along the way.
But first and foremost, we're here to celebrate the fact that this thing rules.
Hey man, want to go see a concert?
I'd love to go see a concert. We're actually going to go see, I think we're seeing a couple of concerts together
We
this
have
year,
two
right?
concerts planned. We're going to see, we're seeing Deltron 3030.
Yeah, which I think they're going to do that entire album front to back.
That's so cool.
I don't know if you've been to a show where they do that. Not them specifically, but any band just takes like an iconic classic album and does it back to back, or the whole thing straightforward. I saw Nas do that with Illmatic once, and it's fantastic because it's like you never get that with concerts, right? Like you always get songs out of order, so to get a whole album front to back, it's a rarity. But yeah, we're also going to see The Prodigy.
We're going to see the fucking Prodigy. This is rad. So first of all, for context, I feel like Deltron 3030 is kind of a slept on thing, but it's, for anyone unfamiliar, it is sort of proto Gorillaz in that it is Del the Funky Homo Sapien, Dan the Automator, and Kid Koala. Yeah.
Who's their DJ. Yeah.
So like basically Gorillaz minus Damon Albarn and Jamie Hewlett, but it's a phenomenal.
What's interesting
album,
is
top to bottom, and
I was a huge fan of all those guys individually, and saw them all perform live tons of times when I was living in New York. Tons. Kid Koala especially would just do DJ sets for like $5, and I'd be like, I'm gonna go watch that guy, scratch a bunch of funky saxophone solos like over some weird laid back beat. And then they came together and they did an album together, and I was like, this is incredible. Like Dan the Automator just alone is one of the most, I'd say, like slept on hip hop producers, period. Like he's phenomenal. But yeah, they're getting the band back together for what is it, the 25th?
Yeah, I think so.
25th anniversary. And then I don't know, you and I found out we both became fans of The Prodigy around the same time in what, 98, 97? Like when did a long time ago.
I don't know. I feel like there've been sort of windows in my life where I'm keen to go see a concert, and then there's a large stretches where I'm not, and frequently like it sort of ships in the night where musicians I want to see are touring at the time that I want to go to a show. And I've sort of always wanted to see Prodigy, but like never. I think the thing that kind of kicked me in the ass to just buy tickets for this was like Keith Flint died a few years back, and I was like, I don't know, I dressed up as him for Halloween when I was 11 or whatever, and like I love their music, and I don't know what that music is like now, because like Liam Howlett has got to be what, like 50 something, or 60. I don't know. He's up there. He's been doing this for a while. But like I don't know. I've been to a couple like electronic shows, but I don't know what that's like. Again, it's like something that's really familiar to me, but it's going to be in a totally unfamiliar context and setting.
Yeah, no, same. I somehow never saw them live. I think so to go bigger picture here, concerts are a thing that in theory I probably shouldn't like, because they're overly, they're not really the best way to hear music that you love. Like the sound quality is pretty hit or miss. There's massive crowds. They always run like 4 hours later than they should on like a Tuesday night or whatever. They're expensive. Ticket prices have gotten just astronomically insane.
Yeah. No, it sucks.
So all of those things combined, there's also really something really special about going to see an artist that you like, or even an artist that you've never even heard of, and finding out about musicians for the first time by seeing them open up for somebody that you do know, or just stumbling into some like local venue and they're playing. With a crowd of people who are all sort of into the same thing at the same time, and you just get these really awesome. It's weird because you're with more people than you ever are with when you listen to those songs independently, but it feels more personal somehow. Like because the lead singer's on stage and he's like, "What's up, town that you're in, which he hopefully remembers the name of, because I've seen plenty of videos where like people are like, "Yo, what up, Ohio?" and they're like, "We're in Austin, boo." So that happens. But no, I've been going to concerts my whole life, obviously, but the ones you go to when you're a kid are like silly, right? It's just like, oh, there's a band in town and not connected to this restaurant. We're gonna go see them, right? Or like it's the coming out of their shells tour, and the Ninja Turtles are here.
I feel like
to explain.
you were close enough to New York that there was definitely a benefit. Like it was less of a pilgrimage to go see good shows there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly was really late getting into concerts. My first like actual concert that I ever went to was Ozfest 2005, which was I was like 19, 18, something like that.
That's a huge first show.
Yeah,
like
well, Maiden was playing, and I was like,
yeah,
they were headlining. I guess Ozzy was there too, and yeah, it was rad. It was, I don't know, I don't remember it being like, I was definitely like peak metalhead, but it was funny because I was just kind of like, I don't know what my expectations were, and I just kind of went. I was like, this is pretty cool, and then I was like, oh, I just went to concerts. Then I started going to concerts pretty regularly, and then there's like a large stretch in my, I don't know what it lines up with exactly. But there's a long stretch where I did have enough money to go to shows, but I just wasn't really doing it for whatever reason. I think there was maybe the stuff that was touring or the people who were around was just not in line with my interests. And I feel like now there's a lot of artists that are doing like, not reunion tours. They're doing like, victory laps or whatever. And I'm
anniversary
like,
shows and stuff like, yeah.
And I'm old enough and they're old enough that I'm like, maybe not going to get another chance at this. So I should probably jump on it. And
yeah, I think that's what kicked me in the ass early on was I had this friend named Pat who put me on to he was like 6th or 7th grade. He put me on all this punk music and all this sort of like not necessarily like post like Seattle grunge, but stuff that was like adjacent to that and less mopey and more hard, right? And being in like the tri-state area, there was a lot of opportunity to kind of watch those scenes kind of get bigger around me. And like a couple years later, like I was at CBGB's and saw a punk show. And it's like, that's one of those things where you tell people that was like a normal thing for me to do. And I tell people that and they're like, oh my God, that must've been like the most incredible night of your life. And I was like, no, it's just like, a bunch of scrappy bands got on stage. They did a bunch of, 19-second long songs. Some people got in fights in the arguments. Somebody threw up, or fights in the audience, and some guy threw up, and then you left, right? But my friend Pat called me, and he was like, "Hey, I called into a radio station, and I won tickets to Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots. Do you want to come?" And I asked my mom, and she's like, "Well, it's Wednesday. It's a school night, and I don't know if I want you going to like a rock and roll show in middle school or whatever." And I was like, all right. And she was like, well, don't worry, there'll be plenty of chances to go see those groups again. And it's like, not really.
Yikes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you fast forward like a couple of years, not even a couple of years, and Kurt Cobain had offed himself. And then, STP was running on fumes or heroin for a very long time and in and out of rehab, or at least Scott Weiland, their lead singer, was. And something in my brain was just like, I don't know, jump on those opportunities when you can. But I had the same thing as you, where I feel like there was a good, and it lines up with me moving to San Francisco, where I just kind of stopped going to live shows.
Mm-hmm.
Like in New York, I think it was because like I was so connected to the hip hop scene there, and it was so easy to see like legendary rappers just play on like a random Thursday night for $10, and you would just go to, SOBs or the Wetlands or all these other like places that I don't even think exist anymore. And you'd go see like Mobb Deep, and they would do like 6 songs off of like some of their most iconic albums. And, like all these rappers that I was really, really into that were immensely talented, and most of them aren't even alive anymore, I got to see all the time. And then I moved to California, specifically San Francisco. And I was like, oh, I didn't grow up with the scene here. And I'm not as connected with West Coast hip hop. So when people were like, oh, Corrupt and the Dog Pound are going to play at the Independent, I'd be like, Okay. Well, I hope they have hope they have a good night. No disrespect to them at all. They're also immensely talented, but I didn't grow up in that scene, and so it was a little difficult for me to connect with it.
Yeah, Bay Area is weird in terms of just who comes through here.
Yeah.
I feel like it used to be, a pretty major stop on a lot of tours, and I was looking at it recently, and a lot of places just skip it entirely, and I think it's because it's sort of decentralized, despite being like a proper city, and it's expensive, and I think in terms of the amount of people you're going to pull in, it's like, you do Seattle, you do LA, and it's like anybody from San Francisco who's going to make the trip, they'll make the trip. It's bizarre. Like I remember hearing stories about people who they were getting like Taylor Swift tickets in Brazil because it was cheaper to fly from LA to Brazil and see her there,
Right.
room and board and flights included, than it was to just buy tickets in LA. And they're like, screw it, we'll make a vacation out of it, which is just, that says a lot about how fucked like ticket prices are in general.
That's something I've never considered doing, which it's weird because it just never dawned on me until this year. I almost did that with the so Wu-Tang and Run the Jewels are in the middle of a tour right now, which I just saw their show in SF, and it was fucking awesome. But I was texting my brother, and I was like, we had gone to the 20th or 25th anniversary show for Enter the 36 Chambers, their debut album, like I guess like 3 or 4 years ago. My math is a little fuzzy, but so was that night. And we were like, hey, we like let's go somewhere and hang out and see this show. Let's go to a city that we haven't, we've never been to together. And he was like, you want to go to Chicago on 4th of July? And I was like, let's rein it in a little bit. I was like, yeah, that's, I'm sure I'm down with that. But no, that's something I hadn't really considered doing. And I realized this was the first time, like I'd seen Killer Mike perform before. I've seen LP perform a bunch of times back with his old groups and solo art acts and Company Flow and stuff like that. And this was probably my 5th or 6th time seeing Wu-Tang. And this is my first time seeing any of them in California. And it was just like, oh yeah, this, the music's the same. It's right at home. But like RZA's on stage and he was like, we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for the Bay Area and the love that the Bay Area radio stations gave to Wu-Tang when we were first coming up. And like,
oh shit,
I hadn't
that's awesome.
thought about it. Yeah, it was really cool. I hadn't thought about that. And like, Raekwon's out there and he's got like the SF Giants like jersey on. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, like these guys, their music travels. The love for their music travels. And so, I should too when it comes to seeing musicians that I want to see live. And I think that like for a while I was like, I'm too old, I'm too tired, it's too late, it's too much money. Like it's fucking expensive, man. Like it's like it's totally to see like arena shows or anything like that now, or like festivals, like it is like, to be completely blunt, it is coming from a place of like significant privilege to be able to be like, I'm doing this. But also if you look at it as like, this is a once in a lifetime thing, or a once a year thing, or a once a decade thing, or I'm going to see this group that I've wanted to see for 20 years and I finally get to do it, then you get to leave with a bunch of memories and pictures and videos and merchandise, and you feel like, that was fucking awesome. And
that's kind of it. Is it's a memory.
Yeah.
There's that whole thing about like spending money on things is less rewarding than experiences, whatever. And I'm kind of trying to keep that in mind whenever I look at how much things are. But we're kind of going nuts on concerts this year. So the two of us we're seeing the Prodigy and Deltron. I'm also seeing 9 Inch Nails. We got tickets for that. They're big, which is apparently their big fucking Peel It Back tour, which I'm incredibly excited about because I don't theoretically don't like concerts. And I think the last time 9 Inch Nails toured, like 2021 or whatever, my wife went with all her friends and she was like, you want to go? And I was like, I'm kind of a casual enjoyer of Trent Reznor's, body of work. And I'm like, she came back and was like, that was one of the best shows I've ever seen. I was like,
yeah, they put on a fucking hell of a live show.
And so I'm just like, I'm not gonna miss that. And then they announced like they're doing Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross put together that like one-day festival, Future Ruins, which is it's basically a festival of music scores, like composers. So it's like Danny Elfman, but he's doing movie music, and it's the guy who did the Conclave soundtrack, and it's oh my god, it's a crazy lineup of like really really talented people. But I'm also like, what is the fucking vibe? Like, what is this gonna be like? Is it gonna be like I'm assuming that
isn't it like it's the guy that did the White Lotus soundtrack is gonna be there?
Yeah.
Like I skipped that when I watched that show.
I
I don't know, he's
I
just
heard a
gonna
car
start
with like a
playing,
broken muffler go by the other day, and it sounded exactly like the White
It's
Lotus
like
engine.
woo, 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 woo. So people on drugs in the crowd are gonna be losing their shit and be like, I fucking know that show.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
got Goblin, who did the Dawn of the Dead soundtrack, a bunch of other,
Right.
it's such a bizarre concert flyer. It looks gorgeous, but then it's like in very fine print, it's a performance of, and then in huge letter, Howard Shore's, and then in small print, score of David Cronenberg's Crash. Not Lynch, but yeah. So it's not Howard Shore. It is a performance of Howard Shore's score for Crash of all fucking movies. John Carpenter's going to be there, but he's in like middle of the billing. I've wanted to see him for ages. And again, this is a guy who hasn't been around for ages. So this is kind of like a cool like grab bag. It's also, I think it's like basically my birthday weekend. So I'm like, fuck it, let's do this.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that. I'm also seeing Sparks, which is like one of my favorite bands ever.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
They've been around forever. And again, these are some musicians who are like, they're getting up in years. They've been doing this since like the mid 70s. And
I think that's the big thing. Like RZA called the new the Wu-Tang tour the final chamber. He's like, this is the final tour we're ever going to do. And I was like, oh, I doubt that. I mean, you'll do more, right? But it's also like, I don't know, Method Man's like 56 years old and he's ripped, but you know, the rest of them aren't. You know?
I mean, there's that kind of never meet your heroes thing where you see some like icons and they're like, you know, they're old, like the Rolling Stones, for instance. Like, I've never seen them. Do I want to see them? I don't know. Like they're up there. I saw, I guess it's one of those weird, like naming things. It's not Electric Light Orchestra. It's like Jeff Lynne's ELO or something, or Jeff Lynne's Electric Light Orchestra. And it's like, you know,
right.
It was awesome. It was a killer show. He put on a phenomenal performance. But again, it's also like that dude is 80, I think, you know, and that was his big, not doing this again. It's a pain in the ass. I've seen Danzig a couple times, and I saw like clips of him from, was it Coachella or something? And like, he's showing his age. He's still, he can still do it. He sounds a little bit more raspy than usual. And it's just like, there's a kind of like, I don't know. It can be disappointing, but it can also be really impressive. But either way, it's like you get this memory to go with you wherever.
Yeah. I mean, we saw like we were at our friend Scott Bromley's bachelor party, and on the beach in Santa Cruz, there was just Wang Chung was playing their one song
so
twice.
Funny because I think Scott thought that I planned that. That was his bachelor party, and I was his best man, and we like rolled up, and they're just playing like everybody Wang Chung tonight. And Scott's like, "How did you know?" And I was like, "I had no idea they were gonna be here."
Yeah, like random shit like that happens. We went to like the fair in San Rafael last year. And we try to go every year because it's like it's really beautiful. It's right on this water, and it's like they do fireworks, and it's just like the weather's always perfect. And we were there last year, and En Vogue was there, and they're like that 90s R&B group, but they only have like one song, Never Gonna Get It, that anyone knows. And even most of the people listening to this show right now are probably like, no one knows what you're talking about.
So they did that
song.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did that song. They did like one B-side that I guess a couple people knew. And then they're just like, well, while we have your attention, we're going to just do a bunch of covers that we're also good at. And then they just did that. And it was like, this is good music while I wait in line for beer and go on a Ferris wheel. You know, like
I respect that. That's actually like a kind of a cool way of doing it, because it's sort of like a house band.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
Back in the day, it would be like there'd just be a band would be able to play, you know, favorite songs, and they wouldn't call it covers. They were just the band playing music.
No, so the first concert I ever like bought tickets for and went to that wasn't like the Ninja Turtles coming out of their shells tour, right? Where I was like, Dad, we need to go watch those turtles come out of their shells. We bought tickets for so every Halloween, I don't know if they still do it, but for every Halloween for like Halloween Eve, right? For like 10 years, Mischief Night, Cabbage Night, Goosey Night, Devil's Night, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? They would do a show, I believe it was at Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City, where it was headlined by Cypress Hill. And if you've ever listened to Cypress Hill, most people know that Cypress Hill is basically, it's two people and then seven guys with DJ equipment and bongos, right? It's Be Real, who's the main rapper, and Sendog, who basically just retweets Be Real, right? He just does that. He's just like, he'll be like, insane in the membrane, insane in the brain. It's like, yeah, man, I just said that. So they would put on these shows, but I was a big fan of the first three Cypress Hill albums. And on the fourth Cypress Hill album, which I guess came out, and and you can track them because it's called Cypress Hill 4. They make it really easy for stoners.
Hits from the bong, and
I think
is
that's
that on the first one.
That's like the first and second one, and then the third one
is 4 like Rock Superstar or whatever.
The fourth one is Be Real goes through a really bad breakup with Carmen Electra.
Oh boy.
And then makes a bunch of like music that is the opposite of let's get stoned in a crowd of people and just lay back.
Oh no.
And so they were like, this was a hip hop show that occasionally was like the most laid back, smoked out hip hop show that occasionally also had mosh pits. And the opening group was MOP, who most people know from that song Annie Up, drop that for you, all that shit. Like, so the fucking crowd went nuts for them because that shit had just blown up. And so the context of the show is me and like 6 friends went, and we're like, we need to sneak as much weed into this show as humanly possible, and none of it can be in our pockets. And so we come up to the front of this building, and there are like 4 fucking oil drums full of paraphernalia and shit that they're pulling off of people to throw in there. And Lord knows where all that's going. But somewhere on Halloween Eve in, I guess, 1996, the city of New York gathered up at least 4 oil drums worth of fucking blunts, bongs, bowls, joints, like everything, bubblers, everything. And so we see this from across the street, and we go, oh, we gotta get a little slick with this. So we all take off our shoes, and we go into a store. No, we went into a store first with our shoes on. We bought Ziploc bags, and we each rolled all of our weed into 6 joints that we each put in each one of our shoes in a Ziploc bag between our socks and the inside of the shoe. So I walked in with 12 joints, and so did all 6 of my friends. So you can do the math on that. And then we were joined in the crowd by dozens of other people who snuck in all sorts of shit through however the fuck they figured that out. And so it was just this fucking insane weed party. And this was my first concert ever. And I was like, this seems not normal, right? Like this can't be the thing that they usually do at these things, right? Where like everyone tries to do as much drugs as humanly possible. Like it feels like what they did in the 70s. And I remember reading about Woodstock and then seeing videos and stuff about, Woodstock 99, right? Where like a couple years later, things were just fucking insane. Like people were, and that was the kind of stuff where I'm like, oh, concerts can go very sideways very quickly. But that show was like one of those things where I was like, I think I went 3 or 4 years in a row, different groups opened up. And it was not even like that I like Cypress Hill, but I was just like, they do this show every year. I had such a great time at the first one. I'll just keep going back, And so, yeah, I did. And that's sort of like that. I think that was the first hip hop show I saw in New York City. And then, that just opened the doors. And like, I remember a couple months later, we went to see RZA, who just did solo stuff because he had just put out Bobby Digital, and he was opened up by Rozelle. And Rozelle is this dude. He's the human beatboxer, right? And RZA's show was supposed to start. Doors opened at 8, which is the most meaningless phrase in hip hop concert history, right? Doors open at 8 just means that's when you can start standing there if you so choose to. But when you finish standing there, it could be 3 o'clock in the morning.
Doors open at 8 for a hip hop show is like when Alaska Airlines says your flight's going to take off at 7:25.
Yeah. It's like that's
maybe.
It's not fucking happening.
Maybe.
Yeah. No, it's like when they go, hey, we're now boarding, but you're in boarding group Z or whatever, right? So me and my friend Dan went to the show, same deal, just brought in a bunch of really strong weed, got really fucked up beforehand, and something hit him weird. Like something fucked him up. And he's like taller than you, and he's built like Bane, and he just crouched in a ball on the floor at this hip hop show, and people were just like, yo man, why the fuck are you on the floor? Like, he wasn't laying down, he wasn't sleeping, he didn't get up and go somewhere else. He just rolled into a ball like in this like defense pose, like a fucking, rock lord or something like that. It was like, what are we doing here? And then RZA came out, I swear to God, it was like midnight, and he was like, what's up, y'all? It's me, RZA from the Wu-Tang. And before that, it was Rozelle, and Rozelle doesn't really rap as much as he just beatboxes, right? So he just came out there and just did sounds with his mouth for like an hour and a half while my friend was curled up in a ball. And then RZA came out and then did his thing. And then we got up and we're like, it's 2:30 in the morning. We missed the last train to back to Jersey. And for anyone who's ever gone from New Jersey, the Bridge and Tunnel kids that go into New York City, when you miss that last train, you have two options. One is to just walk the streets and hope everything's okay until the sun comes up, like, you know, fucking Castlevania. Or you go to the Hoboken train station and you wait until that first train rolls in at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. That's full of businessmen. And you basically do this like time leap where you're still doing the night before, but people show up in suits and cologne and they're freshly shaved and you're a fucking disaster. So we did the latter, obviously. But yeah, those were like my first two concert experiences. And I was like, this is not normal, right? And so after that, you kind of like, I kind of definitely reined in the amount of drugs that I did at these shows, specifically weed. I wasn't ever doing like anything serious to any of these, but from there, I was just like, okay, I live in New York. I can take the train to a show for $5-10, go in when I want, leave when I want, and I'll see these guys again because they're always here. They live here, right? So that's when it became easy for me. And then occasionally you would start getting opportunities to go to like big arena shows, right? And that was the first one. First one I went to of those was Beastie Boys and Wu-Tang. No, Beastie Boys and Rage, Rage Against the Machine, and that was the one where they did a benefit concert for a convicted cop killer named Mumia Abu Jamal, and everyone was like, "Don't go to that. It's going to be crazy. There's going to be riots." And it was like, "No, this is to show that the police are the bad guys, and that we're not going to hurt anybody, right?" So I went to the show and they talk about it in the Beastie Boys book. They did that whole tour on this rotating stage where like they're basically on a huge turntable that spins around, which is fucking awesome. But like they were like, you know, half the crowd, half the time had to see like our sweaty butts and asses and backs and shit. And then I saw Metallica in the same arena a couple years later and Nine Inch Nails a couple of times. Yeah, like there's good places for like the little small shows with a small crowd, and then you know sometimes you got to go to the big loud arena rock shows, and they're really fucking fun.
Yeah, I realized that I don't know, a venue has a lot to do with it. Like if it's just a venue that you just don't like the vibe, it's like doesn't matter who's playing there necessarily. It can kind of just suck. Then again, like a really cool venue can turn things around. I went and saw Beck at the Berkeley. The hell's it called? The Greek, I think.
Yeah,
and it's like an outdoor. It's just like a hillside with little, you know, benches on it, kind of, and then like a big stage. And he did a whole set with the Berkeley Orchestra, which was, and it was just like, or the symphony or whatever. And they just played a bunch of his like stuff, these stuff you can't do without a symphony unless you're just playing a bunch of pre-recorded shit. And it was one of the coolest shows I've ever been to. And like I've always been, again, like kind of a Fairweather Beck fan. I'm like, yeah, you know, I like Odelay and Guerra or whatever. And he did a bunch of the hit stuff at the end with his like little small band, but it was mostly just really, really fucking chill. And that's
awesome.
He's such a weird, like he's such a kind of out there musician that it's like, what's his demographic? Like, who is this for? And it was like one of the most sort of varied crowds I've seen. Like it was just in terms of ages and stuff. Like there were little kids there. Cause honestly, like what's his music about? No one actually knows. It's just kind of nonsense. And like, and it was a really good time. I saw Britney Spears in Vegas. That was toxic.
Nice.
That was a different story. I went to Vegas for my 30th, so 100 years ago. Yeah, when she was doing residency, which we later found out was more of like a captivity, you know, like and it was
like a kidnapping.
It was fucking weird. Like it was a I mean, she put on a good show for the most part, but then it was get to the you know the you know Baby One More Time or whatever, and she clearly was just like, I'm so fucking tired of this song, and yeah, it was, you know, it was sort of eerie, you know. Again, it felt like going to SeaWorld or something and being like, this creature should not be here, you know. It's not, you know, it's entertaining on some level, but I also feel sort of bad about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to a couple of those outdoor shows. I think the first time I saw Nine Inch Nails was at one of those in New Jersey, where it's just a bunch of people sitting on a field or a hill, and there's like some stands up close.
It can be really nice if it's nice, and if it's not nice, it sucks ass. It's not good.
Yeah. I think the one we went to was great, and I was like, hey man, you want to like let's go get a drink. And we're like, cool. And we went to like the bar thing, and like I think this was in the '90s, so like they only had like Michelob Light and
Mm-hmm.
what's that like lemon one?
Oh, Mike's Hard Lemonade or whatever. Or
Yeah, it's like one even yeah, like 10 years even before that, like the one that tastes like Sprite. But
Zima.
no, yeah, and it was just like this kind of sucks. Um, but the music itself was fantastic, and it's like I used to go to this thing in Central Park called Summer Stage, and Summer Stage was awesome because it was totally free, and they do stand up comedy there, but they also just do like live shows, and they would just put out the thing like a month before in like the Village Voice, which was like a newspaper you could pick up in any of those like little boxes on the street, and they would be like, hey, here's who's performing, and it would be like Common and Public Enemy and like Most Def and Talib Kweli, and you're like, oh shit, like there's some
That's
really
awesome.
good hip hop groups here, and it's like totally free, and it was like it was always on a Saturday afternoon in August, and it'd be hot, but it'd be outside, and everyone's just in a really fucking good mood,
That sounds
and
so cool.
yeah, it was
We
like one of
did.
those like
Yeah.
New York is so expensive, yeah, but also like you
Then
can do shit
culture,
like
yeah,
that,
that's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, no, San Francisco, less of a thing there. I was gonna say to your thing about stumbling up to Wang Chung or whatever. I've seen Jefferson Starship 3 times, and only once of those was on purpose. They're just always playing around here, and like a couple times they were just playing in Golden Gate Park when I was there doing something else, and I was like, all right, you built this city on rock and roll. Thank you. Great job, everybody. I don't, and I'm like, I think the first time they played in Sonoma, and like nobody played Sonoma. Like nothing would actually not true. One show I wish I'd gone to. Two Live Crew played in Sonoma
Oh man,
at a place called Little Switzerland. And it was like one of the few venues in the area they had not been banned from, and they proceeded to get banned from there too because of some woman was performing lewd acts with a banana. I don't know what that entailed, but it was like this like minor local controversy for a while. But again, it was this. It's like this small. It's like a Swiss restaurant that just has like I don't even know what Swiss cooking is, but it was like it wasn't like a venue. It was a restaurant that happened to have a stage, and they were like, "Yeah, me so horny. Let's fucking do this. Let's." um,
fuck,
yeah,
that's so funny. I
yeah.
feel like you hear stories like that about like stand-up comedians a lot, where they're just like, oh, I had to play this venue where it was just like it's like a it's a food truck, and they moved some of the tables out of the way, but like you don't really hear it for like '90s rap groups. But I guess musicians, there's a lot of places that are restaurants that are just like they just move some furniture around at the end of the night, and they're like, it's a bar that has a band, and that band just happens to be a band that charted famously at one point in history, and also are mired in controversy and death and disease and drugs.
I really want to see Guar, who infamously they they keep getting banned from places because they basically just do like Gallagher shit where they like smash things and get like you got to wear like a rain poncho to go in there, and the front row is just holding up like a giant tarp because they'll just be like, hey, we made like a puppet of Paris Hilton and we're gonna feed it to a giant Venus flytrap and it's gonna spray blood everywhere.
Do you remember there's that rapper Necro? He was in the end of not
Good time, yeah.
Uncut Gem. A Good Time. Yeah, he's like this very very pudgy, bald, pale guy, and all of his he did this like horrorcore, horror hip hop. Like I never got into his music ever, but him and a bunch of other dudes. He's like definitely talented, but it was always just like this is a bit much for me personally, like um, I was at a show at the Knitting Factory, which is by Union Square, New York City, and it's there's like a park right there that's one of the only private parks in the city. Like to get a key to it, you have to be a resident that lives near it, and to be a resident that lives near it, you have to be extremely rich. And so, 2 blocks from that is a venue that Necro got banned from the night I was there because he did a show on stage. He was opening up for another group I went to see. I don't even remember who, but he was there with this group called Nonfiction, who were a bunch of like a bunch of rappers who are also white guys who are also like very like hardcore in your face with stuff, right? And also talented, just not necessarily my thing. He had a bag, one of those like black takeout bags you get when you get like a sandwich and a beer in a bodega in New York City, and he was like, "Yo, I got $10,000 in this bag. Whoever opens it up gets to keep it." And he threw it into the crowd, and the guy opens it up, and he goes, it's a dead pigeon. And I was like 5 feet from him, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, why would you do that to people that paid to see you? And he was never asked back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't believe a guy named Necro would do something so ghoulish.
Ridiculous. The nerve of him.
I love that.
No, so yeah, you definitely get moments like that. But
yeah, who's on your bucket list of like people you haven't seen or acts you haven't seen?
I'm trying to think of who's left. Honestly, most of them are dead. Like, I've seen, like, there's a bunch of new guys I haven't seen yet that I will at some point, right? Like, we talked about some of the guys that are like our sort of like end of the year episode where we talked about some of the music we listened to, and I talked about all those rappers in Griselda. They're really good, and I've never seen any of them live. And I turned down, they were doing a show in Oakland a couple months ago, and a buddy hit me up, and I was just like, oh, I'm tired.
Yeah,
you know?
that's the answer a lot of the time for me too. It's just like, I don't want to go.
They're like, they're big enough that we could have bought tickets same day, but also like, small enough that we could have bought tickets same day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
that makes sense.
It's kind of like, yeah. So there's them. I really want to see that group, Coast Contra. I think I sent you one of their freestyles a couple months ago. They're just nuts. They have that like just wild sort of like 90s Far Side Fushnikins energy where they just bounce off of each other really well. Trying to think if there's any like rock groups that I've been wanting to see. Like there's guys that like I haven't seen in a really long time that I'd love to see perform again, like DJ Shadow. Like I've seen him perform forever, and I'm not really in love with his new music, but I feel like that dude, like him and Cut Chemist, who was Jurassic 5's DJ, they used to do tours where they would just spin 45s. And this is before this is fucking everybody does this now, but they would spin 45s and scratch and like beat juggle and all this other shit that you're like, oh, I didn't know you can do. Like, you know how little dainty little twinkle fingers you need to have to do that. Like you touch a 45 and it flips over. So they would do DJ sets like that. So I think stuff like that is kind of more what I'm into these days. I would totally see Nine Inch Nails again. I went to when the tickets went on sale. I think they were like, it's like $500 each or something insane, right? Like
they're stupid.
Yeah. And so I was just like, all right, well, I've seen them a couple of times. I'll probably get FOMO about this, and I'll see if there's any tickets left week of, but yeah, I don't know. What about you?
Probably like Daft Punk, just because they're a bunch of electronic acts like Daft Punk, Justice, and Rat-a-Tat is like I've seen them once, but I want to see them again. I totally forgot I saw them, which is wild because it's like they're just two dudes and like one guy's on a keyboard, the other one's playing guitar, and I would say it's like up there with like Tom Morello in terms of like how the fuck are you making that sound come out of that thing? Right. And it's
just like sonically, like
it's just rad. Yeah, it's also a weird vibe because you can like sort of dance to some of their stuff, but also a lot of it's kind of just like this is music, you know, it's kind of ambient, you know, so you're not really sure like what are we all doing in here? What's the move?
I feel like when with the Prodigy, like when we go to the show, there's gonna be people dancing, and then there's gonna be like the old school hip hop heads who are just like nodding and having a good time.
Yeah, no,
like,
we're just gonna be in the back getting drunk. I think that's the move there.
I'm kicking myself that I never got to see Soundgarden, that I never got to see Chris Cornell perform live. Like that's the part where like the older I get, I'm like, man, and that, you know, that expired years ago, right? That opportunity, but.
Yeah, I mean, Rage Against the Machine is the big one for me. And we had tickets to go see them, and then Zach De La Rocha broke. Well, COVID happened, and then Zach De La Rocha broke his ankle. Zach De La Rocha's ankle.
And then my brother saw them in either in New Jersey or New York, and Zach had like torn his hibiscus or whatever the fuck fake Bounty Barn, and he did the whole show sitting on the speaker, which is not good for your ears if you're listening at home. Do not perform Rage Against the Machine music while sitting on the speaker. And he fucking tore the house down. And I was like, I would have even seen that. And I know his doctor was probably like, don't even do that.
And he was like, I wish he had done that. I won't do what you tell me.
I think he was like, this time I will do what you tell me.
I would love to see Rage on top of the machine. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that sucks, man. I would have fucking loved I would love to see them one more time.
Yeah.
If that opportunity pops up, I do not care how much tickets are. We are going.
Yeah, no, totally.
It is absolutely. Like I want them to get their shit together. First of all, I want them to make another album because like there's plenty of new things to be mad at.
That's
I don't
true,
know if they have phones. Like they put out some of the hardest music ever when, you know, Bill Clinton lied about getting a blowjob.
Mhm.
And it's like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, boys, but it's gotten a little bit worse out there.
Yeah,
You
that'd
know?
be nice. I saw David Byrne, and he basically he pretty much did like a sequel to Talking Heads Stop Making Sense. Like it's American Utopia. It's on HBO. They did a whole video thing of it. It's it's my favorite concert I've been to. It's fucking phenomenal. It was absolutely just like transformational, whatever. Big thing, I've just been reading a lot of books about musicians and stuff, and on a whim I read a whole like book about Madonna. And I was like, wow, I really like Madonna. I should see if she's touring. And she had done like a 40th anniversary, like a Virgin tour 2 months prior. And I was like, well, fuck. And like, I hadn't been paying attention at all. I was like, oh, is Madonna playing anytime soon? And maybe she'll come around. I mean, she'll definitely come around again at some point. I'll probably try to jump on that. I'm sure that's going to be, the price of a small car. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't taken my kid to a concert yet, and she's just about to become a second grader. So unfortunately, she has caught Taylor Swift disease. And if there's Swifties listening to this, don't get mad at me. But I'm, as the father of somebody who constantly now has like a backseat radio DJ being like, please listen, put on one of these 5 songs. I had to turn around the other day and I was like, doesn't this woman have like 10 albums? Like, why do you only know 5 songs? And it's like, well, that's probably my fault. She's not going to just launch her own Spotify account, and she doesn't have a phone. But she's like, can we go see that before? Can we go to get tickets to see her? And I was like, no. Like, that's way too much money for me to spend on something that me and your mom don't like.
Yeah.
Again, no offense to Swifties. You are a passionate group.
Well, you're the reasons that this small child can't go enjoy this musical act. I'm just, you drove up the ticket prices too much.
We should go to Brazil or something. But no, she wanted to go with me to the Wu-Tang show. And there was a moment there where my wife was like, yeah, maybe. Because our buddy Andrew was just telling us about how he took his daughter to a punk show in town and got her like the big soundproof headphones, and she got them. It was like a small local venue, so she got to like meet all the bands afterwards and like help out at the merch table. And I'm like, that's awesome. None of that would happen. I mean, the headphones would happen, but the rest of that wouldn't really happen at the Wu-Tang show. And I was like, yeah, but there's gonna be a lot of people like vaping in our faces and getting drunk and all that. And we get there, and like literally 7 feet from us is this guy with like a definite like 5-year-old girl who's just like, I want to see Wu-Tang, and is like, God damn it, I guess I could have done this, but no, I'll get her there eventually.
I'm excited for that. My kid is obsessed with ABBA. She really likes Mamma Mia, which is fun because at some point there'll be like a local performance of Mamma Mia the musical. And we'll take her to that, and that's going to probably that'll kind of cover 2 bases where it's like you're seeing live music but also a play, which is a conversation for another day. I'm not wild about that shit. Like my wife's all into, she was like a theater kid, so she likes to go see plays and things, and I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's so funny because I'm the same way as you, where I'm like, I love live music, and it's like, what about story? And I'm like, I love stories. What if we combine them?
No,
I love the idea of a play. I like going to plays. I love going to concerts. I don't need both of those things to happen at the same time. If something breaks, I can this is such a fuck you to theater kids, but like I can understand when 5 people in a band all know the same songs, but when 15 characters in a town all break into a song at the same time that some lady just made up because of a plot device, I don't buy it, and my brain's like, hey, wait a minute, this is bullshit. And that's not a real building back there. It's paint. Not my thing. Not my thing. Also, I like a friend of mine was like, yo, have you checked out Hamilton? And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a listen, because I love hip hop, and I've listened to it, and I was just like, this is not what I want.
I don't think I like hip hop anymore. No, thank you.
I was like, this is, again, no offense to those people, Mike Drucker, who had an entire Hamilton podcast. Amazing work that you could do that.
How this came about, but I think it started as a joke that rapidly snowballed out of control until suddenly we were there. But we went and saw the first half of Shrek the musical, and it was definitely like, wouldn't this be funny? And they were like, what if we got really dressed up? And we did, and then we watched the first half of Shrek the musical, and then during intermission, like my wife leaned over and was like, wouldn't it be funny if we left? And I was like, yeah. I'm okay. Let's go. I don't have a dog in this fight or a.
We did that to my mom when we went to see Cats at the Winter Garden Theater in the 90s.
Oh man.
And me and my brothers and my dad were just like, this is deeply uncomfortable and we hate every second of it. Can we leave? And she's like, I want to see what happens with those cats. And I'm like, just ask anyone. Every time they show commercials for this thing, there's 50 people standing outside of this theater being like, it's marvelous, it's fantastic, it's amazing. So yeah, not necessarily my thing. Weird Al is playing near me, and I like the idea of going to see Weird Al. I also haven't checked in on his albums in like 20 years, and so like it would just be a really, I don't know, like I could go and I could bring my kid, and it's a family friendly show and stuff like that. I doubt there's gonna be people like mosh pitting and getting fucked up in the crowd and stuff. Maybe some sickos. But like, it's like, hey, do you want to hear that Michael Jackson song I did a cover of? It's back. I'm like, okay. I mean, like, I respect the fucking hell out of that dude. I think he's one of the funniest and most talented people on earth. And I was a big fan of buying his albums when I was younger, because I was like, this is great. It's music that you can also laugh to.
Mm-hmm.
What a funny concept. But I think now I would just be like, I haven't checked in on you in a really long time, and you're playing a bunch of like once contemporary hits that are remixed.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is he probably is going to play some songs that are like parodies of recent shit that you're not even aware of.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine there's got to be something in there where I would be like, I don't know what this is a joke about. I don't know I don't know why this is funny. What is this based on? I love his original stuff. Our pal Seth Macy, who we had on the Mountain Dew episode, he went and caught him when he was doing a show that was just his original songs.
That's really cool.
Which is, again, like, what a bizarre little like corner of just like a little thread the needle of hipster bullshit where it's like, oh, I only like Weird Al's original music. But like, I don't know, it's his stuff's great. Like Dare to Be Stupid is a really interesting one because that one is parodying Devo the band, not any one of their songs. He was just like, I'm gonna do a song like Devo, and it's like it's a great song. It's amazing. And yeah.
No, the dude is tremendously talented. You're kind of turning me around on this, but I feel like I would be there for like an hour and a half, and I would know like 6 songs, and I would enjoy most of what he's doing because he's such a good dude. And you can tell he's a good performer and he gives a shit. But I would also just be like, I don't like. There's a lot of this music I just don't want to hear together. You know,
it's an odd one. Yeah, maybe Weird Al's a conversation for another day, but I don't know. Yeah, if it comes through, who knows? But yeah, concerts are great. They're a good time, unless you pay $23 for a beer and your feet hurt. In which case, they're probably less of a good time.
I did that the other day. It was $23 for a Space Dust IPA Tall Boy.
Were you at the Chase Center?
I was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the beer. Don't do it.
Yeah. I mean, it was either that or not get a beer, which I think makes more sense to most people. But I got my friend a water because he doesn't drink.
The water was $1,000.
Yeah. The water was like half the price of the beer. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I felt more ripped off by that because I was just kind of like, man, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that sucks.
But yeah, that's where it gets it's tricky. But
now you got to go back to the old ways and just put a bunch of beers in your shoes. Just get really huge shoes and put beer in the bottom.
Well, every couple of years we like share those pictures of like there's true passionate tragic alcoholics who they have like fake tits or they have like a beer belly that they fill.
My favorite is the flask that looks like binoculars. And so you're just drinking out of binoculars and it looks like you don't know how to use binoculars.
I love those so much, and I also want to mix them with that, that like those gag binoculars they had in the 90s where they put black rings on their eyes.
You put shoe polish on there.
I want to do that to the guy who has the binoculars flask. So the security comes over and they're just like, why is there a circle?
Yeah, why do you look like Steven Seagal? What's happening? Anyway, good talk, man.
Yeah, I love concerts. I'm going to keep going to them for as long as I can.
If anybody listening sees us at one of these upcoming concerts, say hello.
Thanks for coming out tonight. We'll see you soon, Ohio.
This is West Virginia, sir. And before we go, just a big, huge special thank you to our Patreon executive producers. That means Ben Burkhalter, Anthony DePiro, Nick Vaughn, Paul Atienza, Steve Cam, Caleb Hilliard, Billy McKendry, Chip Chunkling, and Kevin Lemasurier. Thank you all so much for your continued support. This Thing Rules is made possible thanks to the support of our Patreon backers. If you'd like to help us keep the lights on and get some extra bonus stuff for yourself, you can go kick us $1 or $2 at patreon.com/thisthingrules. But really, every little comment, like, subscribe, share, or other form of engagement goes a long way. So if you've got a minute, give us a plug on social media, or go give us a nice review on iTunes, or just write something weird. I don't care. It's nice that you made the effort.
Hey man, did we order an orchestra? What's up with this orchestra, man? Where'd the orchestra come from?
I don't know, man.
They didn't tell me about this, man. We gotta do something. Oh yeah, we think we did. Do you know Insane in the Brain?
We mostly know classical, but we could give it a shot.